And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very exciting segment here today on the 21st day of October. Well, once again, it's wonderful to have your company on this show, and we have lots to talk about. Weather today, it's a little bit cloudy, even though it's been predicted to be sunny. And the temperature at this point in time is about 22 degrees, and it will get up to about 25 during the course of the day. And how many of you noticed the big full moon yesterday? Well, it was amazing. And Bob, yes, he did a wonderful capture of that last night there as well. Well, today we have lots to talk about. We've got the India Day Fair to talk about. We've got all the local news that's happening, plus the Daily India Report with the courtesy of PIO TV. And then at 10 a.m., we have the travel update with Tanvi Goyal, and of course we have lots of information on that segment for you. As the restrictions are easing, borders are opening, so there are lots of rules and regulations that are coming in place. So if you are planning on traveling, which a lot of people would be because being grounded for such a long time, now that the borders are opening and restrictions are easing, what can you do? What can't you do? What are the tips for that? Find out all about that in our 10 o'clock travel update segment with Tanvi Goyal. But right now, let's get into the news. So Queensland is lagging behind when you look at the vaccination numbers. And why is that so? Because Queensland is a big state, it's a very big state. We have got the metro areas, but then we've also got the regional areas. So how do we go about getting everyone vaccinated? Here's that report.
From Cairns to Coomera, Mount Isa to Mackay, on another day of zero cases, an army of ministers launched a statewide vaccination campaign against an enemy authorities warn no one will escape.
Every single Queenslander is going to get exposed to the COVID-19 virus and will get infected. But if you're vaccinated, that's not a problem.
A blitz on 9 regional centres everywhere, from a Rockhampton vaccination clinic and a Mackay Vax hub to a Cairns pharmacy, a Nambour school and Toowoomba meat processing plant.
We have about 400,000 Queenslanders across the state that are yet to be vaccinated.
A call to arms for Jabs in Arms to boost Queensland's defences as the state prepares to reopen to the rest of Australia on December 17. For individuals to have full vaccine protection by then, first doses must be delivered by the end of October.
We've got 12 days Queensland, let's do this.
Cancer survivor Helen Luo is counting on it.
I feel a bit worried. You don't know who get it, who don't have it. That's the problem.
While Brisbane's vaccination rate will likely be above 80% by the December deadline, the regions are lagging.
We could end up in a scenario where Brisbane is safe because it has a high vaccination level, while the regions are not.
Areas like Mackay, Whitsunday and Isaac are lower than the state average.
The Sunshine Coast is doing well, but we can do better.
And rates in some First Nations communities are among the lowest. Yet today at Mackay and Rockhampton hubs there weren't too many takers. But those who were there are planning a bright future.
So I can go to Tasmania for Christmas.
Travel, just something to be back to normal.
Once Queensland opens up, lockdowns could still be enforced in communities which haven't reached the 80% threshold.
If there is an outbreak in an area, there may be restrictions put on that area.
And the fully vaxxed will have the most freedoms. A second roadmap for businesses is being discussed as they decide whether to allow unvaccinated staff and clientele.
We hope we can release all of the restrictions on those venues that choose to only have people who are vaccinated.
Although how it will be policed is causing concern.
I don't support small and family business owners and their staff becoming COVID cops.
Maroochydore bar owner Alex Johns says it's been hard enough for staff to enforce COVID restrictions, let alone checking patrons' vaccination status.
I don't think that in good conscience I can do that. I can't expect them to do that.
Sally Eels, ABC News.
And of course, it is going to be hard to be, run the business or be a police there to check everyone's things. As the guy that's mentioned, that you just can't do it. Well, from Queensland, let's now go to Western Australia, where the Premier declares the hopes of a Christmas opening air as well.
No reopening plan from the Premier. setting out the timetable that Queensland has is not something we're going to do.
The Premier anxious for the state not to fall at the final hurdle.
Imagine if we opened up like they're proposing to do before Christmas, and then we have to put in place mask wearing requirements and restrictions on the number of people going to restaurants and cafes, how many people can come to Christmas lunch.
In jurisdictions which have remained relatively COVID-free, there's a mixed bag of plans. Queensland and the Northern Territory have set out clear timetables to reopen their borders. Tasmania won't reopen to all of the country until it reaches a 90% vaccination rate. And South Australian Christmas reunions are still up in the air. That state remains in line with the national plan to start reopening at 80% double dose, which is expected at the beginning of December.
The Premier's holding his cards close to his chest. He either doesn't have a plan or is unwilling to share it.
Public opinion appears divided on whether a date should be set.
Not necessarily, because you don't know what's going to happen.
I think it just should open before Christmas, really, so at least we can see our family.
But it's clear tourism and hospitality businesses want more clarity.
It's like trying to look into a crystal ball at the moment with the national plan being announced, but really no news as to whether we as a state are going to follow that, and if we don't, what the alternative is. It's very tough.
The Premier has also ruled out allowing double vaccinated travellers from New South Wales and Victoria to home quarantine for a fortnight in time for Christmas, unless the health advice is downgraded.
When you're vaccinated, you can still spread the virus.
Better news for Queenslanders. Arrivals will no longer be forced to quarantine from Friday.
We cannot be sure for how long that border will be open. So this is your opportunity should you wish to do it.
The state government expects to reach 80% double dose in December. To help speed the uptake, appointments for the jab will no longer be needed at all state-run clinics. Eliza Lashon, ABC News.
So there you go. Maybe that the deadline for Christmas reunion could be just the encouragement that people need to go get vaccinated. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, please do go get vaccinated. It is in the best interest. Well, having a look at that right now in our next report, let's hear Greg Hunt as he announces Australia's situation on the COVID-19 uptake.
I can officially confirm that Australia has now passed the 70% double-dosed vaccination rate for the 16-plus population. To be precise, 70.007% of Australians. It's a memorable number, but it's memorable above all else because it represents the movement at a national level to Phase B of our national roadmap, but above all else, it represents protection for Australians. Each dose protects the individual. Each dose helps protect every Australian. As part of that, yesterday there were 277,000 Australians who came forward to be vaccinated, and that's now taken us past the 33 million mark to 33,212,000 vaccinations that have been delivered in the country, over 33 million vaccinations. And significantly, it's 70% double vaccinated, and the first vaccination rate is at 85.5%. And so that's continuing to grow. And this is a testament to the work of Australians, and it's a testament to our health professionals and everybody that has been involved in the vaccination program. So to Australians, I want to say thank you and congratulations, but keep going. There are many people.
And keep going, and that is the message that everyone really needs to get vaccinated. And it is in the best interest of the whole community, of the entire community. Don't just think about yourself, think about everyone. Do it for the community's sake, for everyone's sake, keeping everyone safe. Well, keeping everyone safe, what about this double daylight shooting in Sydney?
The ABC understands 2 members of the Humsey family have been shot dead outside a home in Sydney's southwest this morning. Sydney crime reporter Mark Reddy joins us now. Mark, what can you tell us?
Joe, good morning. Well, you can probably see this huge police presence behind me here. We've got members of the Riot Squad, organised crime and homicide detectives, as well as general duties officers. Just behind me here is Osgood Street, and just up the road there is the house of Tawfiq Hamzi. This morning, his youngest son, Salim Hamzi, went to pick him up to take him to work in construction. Salim Hamzi came from Auburn, and when he was outside this house this morning, we understand that a high-performance sports car pulled up. There was a driver in that car. Someone got out of the car and then fired shots into Salim and Tawfiq Hamzi. Salim Hamzi, 18 years old, died at the scene. Tawfiq Hamzi was struggling to breathe. Paramedics were here shortly after. They treated him at the scene and he was taken to hospital. We've just had confirmation he was in a critical condition, and sadly he has now died. So that news just coming in the last few minutes. What we also know is that there are a lot of residents on this street who come out of their homes absolutely shocked by what they've heard this morning. We're hearing that there were several gunshots fired, and at a nearby scene there is a burnt out car which is also believed to be linked to this shooting. So as you can imagine, Joe, this is quite distressing. There are a lot of families on this street with kids, and we are seeing some family members of those two men who have died who've also turned up. But Joe, this is quite remarkable given now Salim Hamzi and Tawfiq Hamzi have now died. 4 members of the Hamzi family have been killed in just over 12 months.
And Mark, this is being described as a gangland shooting. What can you tell us about this reported feud between this family and another family, and what this feud is over?
Yeah, so Joe, this all began really in October last year, almost to the day where Majid Hamzi, who's the brother of Bassam Hamzi, he's the gang leader of the Brothers for Life gang. He's serving time at Goulburn Prison for murder. Now, Majid Hamzi was shot dead in a similar sort of way outside his home near his car. There was a drive-by, and we know that 2 people have been charged in relation to that murder. And then only about sort of 7 months later, Bilal Hamzi, who's a cousin, he was walking outside a Japanese restaurant, you might remember, in the CBD at about 10:30 at night on Bridge Street. And as he was walking out, a car pulled up outside. 2 people got out, shots were fired, and then another car was found out burnt out in a few suburbs away. So there is a similar pattern here in terms of these family members being targeted. We know that the Alameddines have also been targeted in a series of shootings over the years. No one has died from that family, but we understand that this feud has so many elements to it. It's about control of these areas. There are talks that it is related to drugs and also the general formation of gangs that we're seeing across mainly Sydney southwest and west. So right now investigators will be trying to work out where these 2 men fled in this car. They'll also be talking to witnesses on this street. Crucial to this investigation will be CCTV as they try and identify these attackers.
And finally, Mark,
those footage would be coming in handy at this point in time. Well, there's that scene on the streets there, which is terrible, and of course right now the inquiry that is going into the former New South Wales Premier, he reveals he knew well before the case.
When did you first become aware that his Bridget was in a close personal relationship with Mr Maguire?
It was revealed here just about a year ago.
Had you known about that relationship at the time that you were Premier and that she was Treasurer? Would have that affected anything that you did as Premier?
Look, I think certainly I think it should have been disclosed.
Why?
Well, the concept of executing a public function in the context of potential private interest, I think in terms of good practice, that should have been disclosed.
You say disclosed to who?
Well, myself as the Premier.
Would have it affected anything that you did or perhaps didn't do in relation to the ACTA project that you and I have discussed today?
Yes, I certainly think there would have been actions taken.
And what?
Yes, I certainly think there would have been actions taken.
And what actions would those have been? Appreciating I'm asking you to put yourself in a parallel universe.
Well, it's a hypothetical.
So we'll keep an eye on that report and finally bring to you all the findings as it goes, because it's quite a process coming through that. Well, right now, Queensland is leading the way on something which is probably not the best. Well, here's that report. Well, I'm talking about petrol prices, and Queensland seems to have the highest.
You will have noticed, if you have a car, that petrol prices are soaring to record highs right across the country, with average prices peaking above $1.80 per litre in some areas. Let's just take a look at how things are in your capital city. So Brisbane, the highest at 180 cents per litre. Ouch. Perth is the lowest, or Adelaide rather, is the lowest. To talk us through why this is happening now, what it means and where do we go from here, we're joined by Peter Khoury from the NRMA. Peter, what's behind this?
Yes, good morning. I mean, unfortunately, what we've seen throughout 2021 has been this consistent increase in global oil prices as the global economy comes out of lockdown. What we have seen as a result of that, of course, is demand for oil now at record highs, and unfortunately supply has not been maintained. OPEC last week announced that they would not be increasing production levels throughout October. And even November looks like it's whatever increases we do get aren't going to be significant enough to provide some relief. So unfortunately, the perfect storm for petrol prices in parts of the country that are finally coming out of lockdown.
So how high could they go, and when might we see them start to come down?
Well, I mean, we just saw those prices for Brisbane and Melbourne. They're already too high. They should never have gotten that high. I mean, those prices are absurd, quite frankly. $1.80 an average. That is a ridiculous price to be paying, even in this environment where oil prices have now breached $100 a barrel.
Well, so is that gouging by the providers there? Is that what you're saying?
It's a combination of two things. It's a combination of the fact that the oil prices are over $100 a barrel. It is also a fact that the gap between the wholesale and the retail price in Australia is higher than it's ever been. For example, in 2021, the gap sits consistently around 17 or 18 cents a litre. 2 years ago, it was 11 cents. So there is definitely a lot of fat in the profit margins as we look across the country today. Now, to isolate that issue alone, obviously, isn't entirely fair because, as I mentioned, oil prices have climbed up to the highest we've seen in 8 years. But a combination of those two factors means that Australian motorists are paying a lot more than we want them to be paying.
But you can pay less if you have the time and the inclination to shop around.
Yeah, you definitely can pay less. Now, Australia has progressed pretty well in this space. In 2016, real-time data reforms were introduced in New South Wales off the back of campaigning that the NRMA did, which meant that every service station in New South Wales has to post their price in real time and make that available to the public. Now, we've got similar reforms across pretty much every state and territory now, except for Victoria.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, Queensland leading the way in the highest price for petrol. I remember when we first came here, it used to be about 48 cents per litre, and now $1.82 per litre. That is just incredible. That's insane, like you had in the last report. Well, right now, as we know, the countdown begins. Today is 21st, and on 23rd of October is Queensland's iconic event, India Day Fair, at a belated date, at the postponed date of 23rd. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, the India Day Fair, Queensland iconic event happening this Saturday at 23rd. Now we know that the COVID restrictions are in place, so the Suncorp Piazza is operating under the COVID restrictions rules, which means there will be limited capacity. So what it means is, first in, better, so is make sure that you get there on time and secure your seats. Because of those restrictions, some people might miss out. So, you don't want to miss out. It's a free event, so it's not a registered event where you have to register. So it's on a first come first basis. Be there and enjoy the festivities as it's been put forward, and it's a wonderful row of events, and quite a lot of performers and very talented people have come together to put the show together for you. Right now, it's time to go to India and our daily India report. With that, let's welcome to Ankita.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, rains continue to play havoc in India. 40 dead in record rains and floods in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand. Unprecedented rains battered the state of Uttarakhand in North India, drowning houses and people, precipitating floods and washing away bridges. Government said the death toll climbed to 40, the worst hit district in the picturesque Nainital with 18 deaths. Scores of people are reported missing, sparking concerns that the actual toll will likely be higher. Officials said they have information of people trapped at multiple locations and several rescue teams are working despite difficult weather and terrain. The lone railway track to Katgodam station in Nainital district was washed away by the swollen waters of Gola river on 19th October. Hundreds of passengers stranded as all 12 trains on the route were cancelled. A dozen national and state highways in the district were also blocked due to landslides. The hill town of Nainital virtually turned into a flooded island, cut off from the rest of the state for the second consecutive day as debris blocked all three routes. While the Nainital-Bhawali road was blocked on Monday afternoon, the Nainital-Haldwani road and Nainital-Kaladungi road were also blocked for public use by the evening. Nearby towns of Bhawali, Mukteshwar and Ramgarh too have lost road connectivity. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami and assured Uttarakhand of all required assistance to handle the situation. The Chief Minister announced an ex gratia of 400,000 rupees for the kin of the victims. Bangladesh Foreign Ministry says elements that opposed Bangladesh's independence are trying to undermine the country's secular credentials. The Bangladesh government has said vested interests are carrying out premeditated attacks on the minority Hindu community in the country to gain some, quote, dubious political mileage, end quote. The Foreign Ministry said local elements that opposed Bangladesh's independence 50 years ago are still propagating their toxic narratives to instigate violence, hatred and bigotry. The ministry went on the record to say that there was an effort to undermine Bangladesh's secular, non-communal and pluralistic credentials in the international context by deliberately targeting one of the biggest religious festivals of the country. The Bangladesh government appreciated the Hindu community for concluding the festivities in a befitting spirit and also welcomes the overwhelming show of solidarity by people in general. India and Taliban to meet at Moscow format in Russia. An Indian delegation and Taliban officials will come face to face at the Moscow format meeting hosted by Russia. Reportedly, the two will hold discussions to focus on the security situation and formation of an inclusive government in Afghanistan. The dialogue between the Taliban and 10 regional countries will be held a day after the US pulled out of a meeting of the extended Troika hosted by Moscow. Only special representatives from Russia, China and Pakistan, the other members of the extended Troika, participated in the meeting. The special representatives of Russia, China and Pakistan exchanged views on common security threats and expressed their joint interest in providing Afghanistan with urgent humanitarian and economic assistance. The Indian delegation to the third Moscow format meeting will be led by JP Singh, the Joint Secretary who heads the Pakistan-Afghanistan-Iran desk in the External Affairs Ministry. The possibility of informal contacts between the Indian team and the Taliban on the margins of the meeting in Moscow has not been ruled out. The Moscow format meeting will be attended by representatives from 10 countries of the region and the Taliban delegation. It will be addressed by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. India says diaspora plays a key role in India's cultural diplomacy. India is devising multiple ways to utilize the presence, influence and talent of the 35 million strong overseas Indian community for propagating Indian culture and a better understanding of India. The government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on many celebrations between 15th August 2021 and 15th August 2022, marking 75 years of India's independence. As India gains prominence in the world as an economic and strategic power, India hopes to generate a better understanding of its multicultural diversity, showcase its vibrant history and also project the pluralist modern democracy. At an event on 18th October in Delhi, we spoke to Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, President of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, an organization under the aegis of the External Affairs Ministry of India. He outlined the important role diaspora plays.
We have not only greatly valued the presence of diaspora communities in different countries, but also tried to use their energy, their talent, their presence over there for creating deeper understanding about Indian culture. Say, for example, yoga. Now, we need not send yoga teachers from India to America. In America also, there are many yoga teachers coming from Indian community. So why don't we use them? That is what we are doing. So likewise, in the context of various traditional Indian knowledge systems, we are now trying to interact with the NRI communities, with the diaspora, and utilizing the talent which is locally available. Besides that also, we are trying to seek their help and also help them for their own younger generation who are born in those countries. Now they are also a little confused about Indian culture. We are trying to evolve that kind of understanding with the NRI community so that they can conduct some training courses, some programs, some awareness activities about Indian culture. So through multiple ways, we are utilizing the presence of NRI community, the diaspora communities abroad for the benefit of understanding of Indian culture.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate Kushinagar International Airport at site of Lord Buddha's Parinirvana. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Kushinagar International Airport at the site of Lord Buddha's Parinirvana in Uttar Pradesh. The move is aimed at boosting tourism on the Buddhist circuit on the back of three markers for economic development, trade, tourism and technology. The inauguration event on 20th October is expected to be attended by the ambassadors of at least 10 to 15 countries where Buddhism is practiced and preached. More than 100 priests and 8 high priests from Sri Lanka, led by the country's Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's son Namal, will also be present. The Kushinagar airport has been built at an estimated cost of $35 million. It will serve the nearby districts of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and is being looked at as an important step in boosting investment and employment opportunities in the region. The airport will facilitate domestic and international pilgrims to visit the Mahaparinirvana site of Lord Buddha and is an endeavor to connect the Buddhist pilgrimage holy sites around the world. India-EU hold third strategic partnership meet. India and the EU discussed the next steps to operationalize the decision of Indian and EU leaders to resume negotiations for a balanced, ambitious, comprehensive and mutually beneficial trade agreement. The two sides agreed to launch negotiations on a standalone investment protection agreement and on a separate agreement on geographical indications. During the third India-EU strategic partnership review in Brussels, the two sides also discussed the next steps on the implementation of the India-EU connectivity partnership. One of the major outcomes of the landmark summit in May 2021 between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the EU 27 leaders was the resumption of the FTA negotiations. The negotiations over the FTA had collapsed in 2013 after 16 rounds due to disagreement over various issues. Another key outcome was the EU-India connectivity partnership. At the third India-EU Strategic Partnership Review in Brussels, the two sides exchanged views concerning the best ways to join forces in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on economies, societies as well as individuals. Former Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh will launch a new party and hopes to have a deal with BJP for 2022 Punjab polls. Former Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh has announced that he would launch his own political party soon and hinted at a possible alliance with the BJP for the 2022 state election. However, Singh said the federal government should roll back the 3 farm laws. On September 18th, Captain Amrinder Singh resigned as the Chief Minister of Punjab following months of infighting between him and Punjab Pradesh Congress Committee Chief Navjot Singh Sidhu. Speculation was rife that Amrinder might join the BJP. Amrinder even held an hour-long discussion with Union Minister Amit Shah at his residence on September 30th. Amrinder had said the purpose of his visit was to appeal to the central government to withdraw the farm laws. Reacting to Amrinder Singh's plans to launch a new party, Punjab Congress in charge Harish Rawat said the party believed the former CM followed secular principles but they were mistaken. Fardeen Khan's comeback film Visfort goes on the floors. Bollywood star Fardeen Khan is returning to the silver screen after a hiatus of 11 years. His comeback film Visfort went into production on 19th October 2021. Son of superstar late Feroz Khan, Fardeen is known for some of his earlier Bollywood films including Pyar Toone Kya Kiya, Om Jai Jagdish, Khushi, Fida and No Entry. Visfort is directed by Cookie Gulati and co-stars Ritesh Deshmukh and Priya Bapat in pivotal roles. It is the official remake of Rock, Paper and Scissors, Venezuela's entry for the Academy Awards that year in the Best Foreign Language Film section. The story of Visfort oscillates between Dongri, Mumbai and the high rises of the city and will be shot in real locations. The film is being produced by Sanjay Gupta, Anuradha Gupta and Bhushan Kumar. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that Daily India report. Well, right now, let's take a look at for functions and events that are taking place right here in Brisbane. There's functions and events taking place in and around Brisbane, but don't forget that this weekend is the India Day Fair. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment. Don't forget that we are back at 10 with Tanvi Goyal with the weekly travel updates. And as I mentioned before, that in this segment we have lots and lots of update as the borders are opening, restrictions are easing. So with all of that in place, there's so much that's happening, so much that needs to be discussed. Of course, we know everyone is planning on, having a little bit of a break or making that move, trying to, travel around. So what's required? What can you do? What you can't do? Where are the possible locations? All of those will be discussed and disclosed at 10 a.m. in our weekly travel updates with Tanvi Goyal. See you then.